Detroit Pistons likely hiring of Trajan Langdon for the president of basketball operations job.
Yeah, you know what? Where everybody instantly goes as it relates to Trajan Langdon right now is his connections to Arn Tellem. And it's an interesting thing because it feels like it's an interesting thing, though, because 2 months ago, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, nobody really cared. Nobody really cared about that name. They all believed it was one character in particular as it relates to Troy Weaver. But with Trajan Langdon, during his playing days, he does have this connection with Arn Tellem, which makes this very interesting. But like we said on Wednesday's show, Trajan Langdon is somebody that's very well respected within NBA circles. This isn't somebody that you just go and you say, you know what, the connection to Arn Tellem instantly makes him spoiled goods, kind of dead on arrival type of thing. That's not what you're getting with Trajan Langdon. You get an individual who the Pelicans, he actually, his connection to the Pelicans, it was because he was going to apply for the job that David Griffin eventually got, and that was the president of basketball operations. But they liked him so much that they said, you know what, Trajan, if you will, please stay around. We want you to at least be our GM. And they gave him a boatload of cash, and he was responsible for scouting prospects as well as putting together some of the trades that really helped move this Pelicans team forward. And during his tenure there, they moved from 30th, about 30, low 30s in wins to high 40s. So his track record is that everywhere he's going, these teams are getting an influx of good young talent that's actually panning out to be something that we haven't been able to say here with the Pistons yet, rotation-level players, rotation-level NBA players. That's been a mark of his since he's been in the league, and I like it. And the other thing I love about this is that he's worked his way up from the bottom to get here. This isn't something that's just being given to him, which is something that might be sometimes intimated with this connection to Arn Tellem. But this is what I'll say. You have to question it, though, because up to this point, the kind of Tellem way hasn't been something that's panned out necessarily for the Detroit Pistons. This is a summer in which it could, though. When you look at and you're talking about the connections to the different agencies, Excel Sports being one of them, where Tellem's son works, well, that's also Cade Cunningham and Brandon Ingram's agency as well. And you got a guy like Trajan Langdon coming here. He's going to know if it's the right thing to trade for a Brandon Ingram or even some other less heralded players like a Najee Marshall, a good three-point shooter. Some of the other players on it, because they're not going to run it back.
Jonas, I can never pronounce his last name.
Valanciunas?
Valanciunas.
Yep.
Even C.J. McCollum, I know he didn't have, he hasn't had the best, what was it, earlier in the playoffs this year? He struggled down the stretch, but I like that, like additions like that to a young team. And I got to ask you, and feel free if you're going a direction, run with that. But I want to make sure. Cool. I want to make sure that Chuck Brewer. Where did I just copy his questions? Because he's asked some really good questions. He said Kool-Aid, and I'm going to be speaking from Chuck Brewer. But I was thinking the same thing. Did he get the job because he's the best man for the job, or because of his connections? And does he have the power or not? And these are good questions. He followed up.
We don't know that second one.
These are great statements you're making, and it sounds like he has a track record of becoming a great GM, but this is a president of basketball operations job. How does that differ? Is he qualified for that? Run, my friend.
He's worked all across the front office here. You know, when you're kind of climbing up these ranks, you get a feel for everything. And the way that a front office is put together, you're really running it as a team, in which a lot of cases you'll have one master decision maker, which will be your PBO, but that doesn't mean that some of these other people who are your assistant GMs, your assistant PBOs, which is what he kind of was during his time, especially in his later tenure with the Pelicans. He got the experience. He's been very, very close. He trained and shadowed underneath people. And he was one of those guys, even in this short amount of playing days, that people thought, he's going to be something to do with front office or coaching in the NBA later on. He's wowed the right people. And like I said in Wednesday's show, before the whole Tellem connection came up, it was somebody that was like, you know what? I like it. I really do like it. Now, in terms of does he have the power, that's for everybody. That's probably the biggest thing.
Nobody knows that yet?
Nobody knows that yet. Now, I would be more optimistic that they would let him do what he does because of maybe the connection to Arn Tellem. Maybe there's some type of a trust there. Maybe there's some system there. Maybe there's some way there. Maybe more trust from Arn Tellem as it relates to a Trajan Langdon because of the track record, the proven track record that he does have right now as it relates to building a team that can make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so that's where, if you want to look at it from a more optimistic standpoint, that's what you're hoping, but nobody can say for sure. The other thing here of note, Troy Weaver.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, and Monty Williams.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be up to him. The early reports are that he's going to sit down with these two and discuss how can they work together. If that's the case, that would tell me that they're giving all of the control and all of the power to Trajan Langdon, and the organization is saying, you know what, we're not going to overstep our PBO. We're going to let him make that decision. So that doesn't mean that either one of them or both are going to be here or gone next year. That means that they're actually, if it looks the way it does, let's say they're tipping their hand or their cap towards, you know what, we're going to give him the power, let him make all these decisions and go. I'm glad they're making this now before the draft. I think you want a guy like him who has shown, you can see the different front offices he's been with and what they've done in these drafts with identifying talent, as well as specific trades or even free agent signings. You wanted to be able to get this thing done now, which is why they chose not to wait to see if the money could woo a Tim Connolly away from Minnesota.
Yeah, the longer Minnesota went in this playoffs, maybe whether they could, pry him from Minnesota or not is another story, but you can't just wait around for that. Wait around for another team to get Trajan Langdon, or just wait till it's going to be the NBA draft in less than a month. In about a month, you got to, your GM, your president of basketball operations has got to prepare for that. You got to understand this organization, the roster, the cap, everything that I'm sure he has high level knowledge of what's going on with the Pistons now, but he's been focused on the Pelicans. So you got to get him in, give him a month to do his scouting, do his prep, do whatever he needs to do with the front office staff and the coach, whatever decisions he has to make to then go into that draft to either select the right player or trade that pick for whatever he wants to build this team into.
And it's important. Just to kind of go back to Chuck Brewer, because I brought some receipts here today.
Yeah.
I brought some receipts. All right, look.
Like CVS style receipts?
Like CVS style. It's important. No, I mean, we've done this before. It's important to question everything. And it's important to wonder, is Trajan Langdon really going to have the power? Because when I tell people a lot, am I at the same stage of trust in Troy that I was in the beginning of the restore? No, I'm not. I believe that his first 2 years, he did a lot of good things. A lot of good things. I do not put the Killian Hayes pick on him. I have good information that would, from some sources, I don't put that on him. Let's just put that there. And other decisions, I don't place those things on him. This team got decidedly weaker defensively when they traded away one of Broder's worst enemies in Jeremy Grant.
Thank you.
But he was a good player, and they brought in a Bojan Bogdanovic, and they did that switch. They took away a 3-and-D guy who actually wound up shooting a blazing 40% from behind the arc with the Portland Trail Blazers. The usage rate went down. The turnovers went down. The assists went up. The playmaking ability went up. And you know who identified him as probably that piece that could work well next to Kay Cunningham? Was Troy Weaver. Now, in Yahoo Sports, just 2 years ago, listen to this power struggle.
Let's hear it.
Because Jeremy Grant out of nowhere was just like, yo, he's just gone. Just gone. We thought this guy's a part of the future. It says, while there's no shortage of interest from contenders in the injured forward, Jeremy Grant continues to have a staunch backer in Motown and Pistons GM Troy Weaver as he nears eligibility in the offseason for a 4-year, $112 million contract extension. So the Pistons had to make a decision. Are we going to pay Jeremy Grant or are we going to get rid of him? Weaver is hardly the lone voice of influence in Detroit, where former player agent Arn Tellem wields considerable and realistically the loudest, say as the Pistons vice chairman. But Weaver, remember, Weaver recommended Grant to legendary Syracuse coach Jim Boeheim long before he was hired to lead Detroit's front office, hence the belief in various corners that we prefer for Grant to stay. I've been saying this for how many years now, though? Because I talked directly to them. This power struggle has been going on for a long time, and it's been affecting things since the beginning of the restore. If you're bringing in Trajan Langdon, the only thing that the Pistons can do here, let him cook. Whether that's letting go of Troy Weaver or Monty Williams, let him make that decision. Whether he identifies that, you know what, maybe they can do something with the right type of support, let him make that decision. But this type of oversight is, choose my words correctly, it has not worked. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
This type, I'm really trying to choose words correctly here. This has not worked. And when you see these types of things and you go back to start the piece, all the articles, all the players, all the connections to his former agencies is where this is a tenuous thing. You got to get this right. Detroit fans have continued to support. They deserve something better, much better.
Kool-Aid, does this move, do you know at this point, could this lead to going after Brandon Ingram? I'm just going to come around and say it. He comes from the Pelicans. You said Ingram and Cade Cunningham have the same agent. Could there be something in the works? Or is this more just speculation? Maybe Trajan Langdon wants to bring Brandon Ingram, but this is just going down now.
You know what? Brandon Ingram and the Pelicans, that's the name you've continued to hear me talk about.
Or Zion, or Trey, or Herb. They have a great roster.
Yep.
Great young roster.
I'll take CJ too, man. Bring CJ too.
Yeah, I mean, the Pelicans have an entire roster full of players. And I'm like, you know what? If we can't get one of their stars or one of their kind of borderline all-star players, I still wouldn't mind grabbing a couple of their role players because the Pistons are so void of NBA rotation level talent. They have players that are still learning the game and they're not quite there yet, and they need some of those NBA level players to do that. I do believe that Brandon Ingram is still in play. When you have Trajan Langdon, the guy who was in their front office, he knows exactly what it's going to take to get something like this done.
Yeah.
They already know it. Already. It reminded me a little bit of when Brad Holmes came to Detroit, and instantly they know exactly what it takes to get a deal done, to get Jared Goff here, Matthew Stafford there. I'm hoping that Brandon Ingram is somebody on their target, but I'm not going to cry over that if it's not. If they find a way to get a couple of those players from the Pelicans who are disgruntled, who are looking to make some moves, that would be really, really good.
And just from your point of view, do you think that he comes in and he does make this pick? Like Broder said, he's only got less than 30 days really to figure this situation out, whether you want to scout, whether you want to, draft a certain player. Do you think he makes this draft pick, or do you think he trades this pick? Just in your opinion.
Yeah, the difference between, Trajan Langdon's hire and Troy Weaver's hire, Troy Weaver has been a part of this process as well, but his position was a little bit lower on the totem pole with OKC than where Trajan Langdon's was. Yeah. One of Trajan Langdon's sole things was getting his teams ready for the draft. So he's bringing a dossier. He's bringing a report.
I like that.
And so he's not going to be somebody that's kind of walking into a situation where he doesn't know what's what. And with this first overall pick, I'm assuming and I'm hoping that they do things a little bit differently with this guy who's leading the charge now and let him make the pick. I'd be comfortable with his assessment based on what we see from his prior track record.
Okay.
I'll take it. Yeah. I'll take it, man. The word you brought up several times, which I'll accept. It's hope. Like, if he can just infuse some hope.
That's all we got.
Yeah, that's all we got to rest on.
You know why I say hope, though? It's because I actually believe that Trajan Langdon is a good front office personnel. I do. I really do. But it's about how the Detroit Pistons front office structure, how that operates. Is this guy really the guy? Are you really giving him the reins? Is he getting all the power to be able to run this thing in an NBA level way? That's something he's been a part of the last 2 or 3 regimes. You look at the organizations he's been with, starting with San Antonio, trust me, he's been getting taught by some pretty good high-level executives in this league. He knows what he's doing. David Griffin, you don't get much better than that. San Antonio as an organization, you don't get much better than that. These are the people he's kind of followed up the ranks behind. So
San Antonio, he's learned how to draft French players in San Antonio. Right?
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah. He's actually probably about the same age as Tony Parker.
Probably.
Ish. But, man, I'll take hope.
Sound good, man.
Yeah. We want this team we want it tomorrow, but in 2 years to be talking like Dan Campbell, like Aaron Glenn, Dave Phipp, like these players that we saw in the Lions yesterday at the media availability.
Yeah.
We want those vibes, that hope, that aura. We're going to throw all the words out. Vibes, aura. We want it all out of this Pistons team. Man, this city is about to explode. Like, Detroit is so close, and we still have 2 pretty bad teams, one on the verge. Like, imagine if one more. Imagine if the Pistons hit for the first time downtown. Man, I'm excited. I can't wait to show you guys some of these clips from Lions. Did you have anything else on the Pistons? I know this is still relatively new, and you're going to be our guy covering it up until the draft. Any last notes?
You know what? I think the only last note is this. If you guys have any types of questions that you would like me to ask Trajan Langdon or any of the front office personnel that will be there, I'm sure there's a press conference that'll be on the way Monday or Tuesday. So definitely, for mailbag, get those questions in. We can actually kind of kick those around right now. Some of the best ones you might hear me asking at the press conference. So definitely.